Today we're going to be talking about a group, and strangely, they don't have any official vampire clan or vampire cult um, moniker to their crime. This was a notorious story, however, because of who the victim was. The victim was Robert Schwartz, and he was a prominent biometric DNA scientist who was very notable in the state of Virginia where this occurred, and very notable within the genetics community and DNA sequencing, and was repeatedly rewarded for that. And now, the actual person who committed the unaliving of Robert Schwartz was one Kyle Holbert, but Kyle was accompanied by a few other people. So on December the 8th of 2001 in Leesburg, Virginia, Robert Schwartz was unalived by Kyle Holbert using a 27-inch sword. And this was orchestrated by Robert Schwartz's daughter, Clara Schwartz, who was 20 years old. And Clara Jane Schwartz had basically recruited Kyle Holbert as part of a fantasy role-playing game, and particularly a vampire kind of role-playing game. Supposedly, Kyle believed himself to be a vampire and a ninja, and he committed this act at the age of 18 years old, along with accomplices 21-year-old Michael Fall. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. It might be Fall. And 19-year-old Catherine Inglis. Michael, along with his girlfriend Catherine, drove Kyle to Schwartz's farmhouse, and that is where Kyle stabbed him. It was later that the police were able to track down a tow truck drive call to Fall's car near the crime scene at the time of the incident. And then they got a hold of Catherine Inglis, who confessed and implicated Clara Schwartz in the crime. Catherine said that Clara had set it up due to alleged abuse from her father, saying that her father had hit her and attempted to poison her. Clara was subsequently arrested afterward, and Fall, Inglis, and Holbert were charged with Schwartz's unaliving. Clara would become the first of the four defendants to go to trial, and her trial began October of 2002. The prosecution portrayed her as being a manipulative young woman who used a role-playing game by the name of Underworld in order to convince her friends to unalive her father. They argued that Clara Jane Schwartz wanted her father to be unalive, that she had hated him for a long time, and that she had already failed to enlist a friend named Patrick to unalive him, and that was when she became desperate and began seeking out others who would be willing to do so. The defense argued that the man who had committed the unaliving, Kyle Holbert, had taken Clara's directive to unalive her father out of context from within the role-playing game. They insisted that she never intended for anyone to actually unalive her real father. But Patrick was brought in by the prosecution, and he attested that she had numerous times spoken about unaliving her father and had researched herbal poisoning methods in order to make it seem like it would be natural. He said that she also discussed about how much money she might inherit if her father should perish, and her concerns about being cut out of his will. He said when she refused to carry out his wishes, she became increasingly frustrated and eventually went and found a willing participant in Kyle Holbert. And so on October 15th of 2002, the jury convicted her of first-degree unaliving, and she was sentenced on February 10th of 2003 to serve 48 years in prison. She is currently incarcerated in Troy, Virginia, and she has a tentative release of November 2nd, 2043. As for the other accomplice, Kyle Holbert was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole and is serving his sentence at the River North Correctional Center. Fall was sentenced to 18 years, and Catherine Inglis was sentenced to only 1 year for conspiracy to commit unaliving. In 2015, there was a true crime book written by M. William Phelps entitled I'd Unalive for You, and it covers the case. And the case was also on a 2012 episode of Snapped and Investigation Discovery's Fatal Encounters, along with The Perfect Unaliving Murder, and the 2013 episode Souls of Stone in the Investigation Discovery series Deadly Women, and an episode of Occult Crime. So that is the story of the unaliving of Robert Schwartz and Kyle Holbert, along with another episode of Vampires, True Crime Stories in History. Till next time, y'all, stay safe out there.